Hi guys, my name is Samantha. I am with a nonprofit called United Against Human Trafficking, and we are a nonprofit in the Houston, Texas area that focuses on combating human trafficking within our central region and the surrounding areas. So today I just want to talk to you about what human trafficking is. So under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000, human trafficking is considered the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. So force, fraud, and coercion are the most important factors in that definition. Force, and that is because force, fraud, and coercion must be proven in order for the U.S. to recognize that human trafficking has occurred. So we'll go ahead and kind of give you some examples of what force, fraud, and coercion look like. Force is anything physical. So this can be physical abuse, physical restraint, drugs, anything that is, again, a physical method used to keep that victim from leaving. Fraud is any sort of deception that is used to manipulate a victim into that situation, and that can be deceptive romantic relationships or false job advertisements. Coercion is very similar to force, except it's more psychological and doesn't entail that physical um, element. So this can look like threats, blackmail, or confiscation of legal documents. And the reason that is, it's because if someone confiscates your ID or your passport or anything that identifies you, it makes it a lot harder for you to leave that situation and try to report that person. So under the term human trafficking are two types of exploitations, and that is sex trafficking and labor trafficking. Sex trafficking is the exploitation of someone into prostitution through force, fraud, or coercion, and labor trafficking is the exploitation of labor through force, fraud, or coercion. So labor trafficking is talked about a lot less than sex trafficking, even though they both happen just as frequently. And labor trafficking typically happens more in a work setting. So this can look like anything from your boss not paying you to your boss abusing you in any type of way, or your boss just making you work in very bad situations. So anyone under the age of 18 does not have to prove force, fraud, or coercion for sex trafficking, and that is because under U.S. federal law, a minor cannot legally consent to sex. When we think about human trafficking, we often think it only happens in other countries. And the reality of this is that it happens all over the world. So you might ask, who are the victims? And the thing is that human trafficking does not discriminate against any type of characteristic. And so this means that victims can be of any race, religion, gender, age, class, or culture. Now I just want to talk about some common red flags. So if someone is looking malnourished or physically, psychologically abused, that's a huge tell sign. If someone is very timid or fearful, that could usually mean that they're maybe fearing for their lives. If someone is telling you a story and it sounds very scripted or it doesn't really make sense, it could usually be a sign that their trafficker is trying to train them into this story. Tattoos are super common for branding people. Living where you work is very sort of unusual for the common person, so that's a huge red flag. If someone is always accompanied by a controlling person, that usually means that someone is supervising them, watching everything they do, and only allowing them to do certain things. If you owe money to your boss, that's also really unusual. And as mentioned, not having possession of your ID is very debilitating and something that traffickers will often do. Now let's talk about how to report human trafficking. There is a national hotline number that is 24/7. They take anonymous tips and they speak over 200 languages, so anyone can feel free to call there. We also provide our own hotline at United Against Human Trafficking. It isn't 24/7. We operate business hours, which are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., but we like to provide this information because we feel that some people feel a little bit more comfortable reporting at a more local and personal level, so that definitely is an option. Lastly, I just want to say thank you for tuning into this conversation, and just remember to stay safe, wash your hands, don't touch your face, and practice social distancing. Thank you.